Election Commission has published the contentious poll bonds data. That's right. The data that was being waited for a long time has finally been published. The Election Commission published the data a day before the Supreme Court's deadline. The Election Commission says the data was published on as-is, where-is basis. So there is no matching between the amounts encashed by parties and who they got them from. You'll only get details of the corporates or the individual donors on one side and the parties on the other, but no matching. Meanwhile, the Election Commission has also moved the top court seeking a clarification on its bond order. But for the first time, we are getting some kind of data of between 2019 and 24 who gave money to whom. Now, what we can tell you interestingly is who are these top electoral bond donors as of now. At number one, with rupees 1,368 crores, is Future Gaming and Hotel Services, Lottery Martin. So the big is Lottery Martin is the biggest. Mega Infrastructure, a building construction company based in Andhra and Telangana, is number two. These are two big companies that have given the data. So that's the big story that's coming in at the moment. I'm joined by Aishwarya Paliwal to give us more details. Aishwarya, the Election Commission coming out with that data, but as is, where is. So they've just put out the data. Now they expect us, journalists and others, to decipher it. There is no matching. Can you give us more details of what the Commission is saying?
Well, let me tell you one thing, Rajdeep, what the ECI has done is that they have made sure that you get all the puzzle pieces, but it is up to you and I and all the other people now to make sure that they come up with a full-fledged picture. Because what we have, 480 pages of the amount that different parties have got. But who has given money to which party is something which people will now have to figure out. And as you rightly pointed out, the top two companies, one has given more than 1,300 crore rupees and the other almost close to 1,000 crore rupees. That's the amount which has been given by that. But the Election Commission also now has moved the Supreme Court, Rajdeep. So what they want to do is that they have given out the data and that is all that they want to do. They do not want to divulge any more data. But let me tell you, the State Bank of India has given all the details and all the data to the Election Commission. The ball now, Rajdeep, is in the Supreme Court.
The ball now is in the court of the Supreme Court. But I want to turn to someone who's been tracking election bond data very carefully. He's broken several big stories on it, including State Bank of India's role in this data. Nitin Sethi of the Reporters Collective joins me. Appreciate your joining us, Nitin. I know it's just a couple of hours, an hour really, since that data is out. But what's your first key takeaways from what you've seen so far?
I think we can still match some of it given a few hours, and come out with some estimations of where money is gone to whom, whose money is gone to whom. It'll still be an estimation and not an accurate picture. I think the State Bank of India, the Government of India, has carefully and intelligently maneuvered to ensure they don't give us linked data, which if you read into the Supreme Court order's intent, it was there, but not in the operative part. Mr. Salve, appearing on behalf of the State Bank of India, had got it clarified from the courts that they need not present linked data. What is becoming evident, as some of us imagined, is that there are a lot of not so well-known entities through whom money has moved. These may not be, and we must remember, any audience must remember, they may not be the ultimate owners of the money that went to political parties, because the system allowed shell companies and unaccounted money to move through many layers before it finally reached the party. So what you're seeing is the legal entity that created the electoral bond, but you still may not know whose money it was to begin with.
So what you're saying is that, for example, what we know, Nitin, very at the moment, and as I said, these are first reaction, top donor, Future Gaming and Hotel Services. We know Mega Infrastructure, a construction company based in Telangana. These are among the top. 980 crores given by Mega Engineering, 1,300 by Future Gaming. Now, you're saying don't just go by these numbers. Some of them are given through trust. Some companies like Bharti Airtel have given through trust, but others could well have been routing money through shell companies. Is that what you're saying?
So some of these well-known companies that you mentioned, Rajiv, these clearly is going from their balance sheets and their accounts, but there are several other smaller numbers and unknown entities that we could quickly see, looking at somewhere around 4 crores, 10 crores range. And these are not so well-known companies. One would have to go into their ownership structures to know who's the real owner of these companies. As you know, a legal company can be held by other company, and you can create multiple layers of ownership, such as that. So the real beneficiary ownership is not known so easily. On a quick glance, I can see some of those existing in this list, which was the fear to begin with. Now, again, even for firms which are well known, where they source this income from, where they source this money from, did they bring it out of their regular businesses? Did they get it from somewhere else and into their balance sheets and then gave it to the political parties? These things will remain unknown.
Therefore, from what we are, could we say safely, and also Nitin, this is only a fraction presumably of the actual amount of campaign financing that comes mainly through cash and kind. Is there a trend?
Absolutely.
Of course, there are a lot of the regional parties, whether it's Trinamool, DMK, also get a lot of their money through electoral bonds. And the biggest chunk goes to the Bharatiya Janata Party because it is India's biggest party. The BJP will turn around tomorrow and say, look, we are getting the maximum funds because we are the biggest party.
But they could always justify, I think BJP could always justify, say, hey, we are popular, we're getting it. But we must remember when BJP floated this idea, and this is on record, BJP said we will be collecting a lot of money from our volunteers in the villages in small amounts. The fact is, all of this almost entirely is in quantums of 1 crore plus. So these are not poor villagers and supporters of a party paying, but these are rich corporates and rich entities and individuals paying. Therefore, there's a taint around this money. Two, you're right, the regional parties also similarly tend to get money if they are in power. Again, shows to us it's a scheme that was meant to benefit those political parties who are in power either at the union government or at the state level. It does reaffirm the fact that BJP got the largest chunk of it by a fair mile compared to other political parties. It also tells us it's a small cohort relatively of people who are donating, and these are people with business interests. These are not, in most cases, even on the face of it, individuals who are inspired by the ideology or politics of a certain party to give it money. This is money that went for certain pecuniary benefits that these entities hope to gain from the political party.
Just one final question, Nitin. Do you believe, therefore, that the matching will be possible? There are some vaccine companies, for example, that have given monies. It will be interesting to know who they gave monies to. There are large infrastructure companies, some of which were being investigated by the Enforcement Directorate at various times, that have also given large amounts of money. I just want to put up, before I come to you with that the top electoral bond donors include Mega Engineering, they include Piramal Enterprises, Bharti Airtel, Torrent Power, Gujarat-based, DLF Commercial Developers, Vedanta, Apollo Tyres, Lakshmi Mittal, Edelweiss, PVR, Keventer, Sula Wine, Wellspun, Sun Pharma. Now, we must tell you, many of these are listed companies. Many of them have given it legitimately. There was an element of, they were promised that these names would not be revealed. So, simply having your name on electoral bonds doesn't mean that you've committed anything wrong. Far from it. It's just that whether any patterns can be discussed. So, Nitin, coming to that, the patterns that can be detected, how easy is that going to prove? Is that going to be to actually match a particular donation made and the party that got it, and whether there was any quid pro quo?
So I think with absolute accuracy, you and I as journalists would not be able to say on our own that this particular tranche of money from this company X went to this party Y. We will be in several cases able to say, because the encashment of the bonds was near about the time that certain companies purchased, that there's a fair likelihood that it would have gone from this company to that. Three, I think we must remember even the listed companies, Rajdeep, that have bought these bonds, we would have to wonder, did the shareholders of those companies know where that company was giving money? Because this is shareholders' money. In listed companies particularly, these are not promoter-held companies, this was just promoters and the board deciding quietly whom to give the money, which party to donate to. In the annual accounts of the company also, it would not be disclosed which party the money had gone to. So shareholders businesses and investments are put at stake because the risk is high depending on who you give money in politics. And those are legitimate questions to be asked by shareholders of the companies whose disclosures have been made today.
So you're making a distinction between listed companies, some of whom may well have done it through trusts and thereby been pretty open and transparent about it. There are companies that do it through that scheme, and others who may have are not listed, and where the promoters may have individually decided who to give the money. That's where there will be questions, of course, also asked whether there was any dealings that were made. But Nitin, this is the tip of the iceberg, presumably. And we'll get many more, much more data. There's a treasure trove of data out there. Matching will be a challenge, and I hope you and many others out there will be up to that challenge. And I hope we get much more information. At least sunlight is finally being seen in some of these areas. So thank you very much, Nitin Sethi, for joining me here at the top of the news on this big story that's been breaking.